Welcome to the Deep Dive, the Theopoetics Edition. We are Dr. Aaron Waldron, founder and CEO of Corvus Cantus, a theopoetic publishing house and creation of Lost Raven Studios. What you're hearing right now is an expansion. The original Deep Dive podcast has been a space shaped and supported by AI, a place where ideas are explored, questions are sharpened, and insight is generated through emerging technology. But this edition marks a widening of that circle. Through our partnership between Corvus Cantus and the Deep Dive podcast, the Theopoetics Edition becomes a threshold space, where artificial intelligence meets sacred imagination, where technology intersects with myth, poetry, theology, and embodied reflection. Here we focus intentionally on theopoetics. We teach, we inform, we remember, we draw from Theopoetics and the publishings of Corvus Cantus, the books, the dialogues, the voices inhabiting the liminal spaces between doubt and devotion, critique and creativity. This is not systematic theology. This is not rigid dogma. This is theology felt, spoken, questioned, reimagined. In a meta-modern age, where we oscillate between irony and sincerity, fragmentation and hope, Theopoetics offers a way forward, not by resolving tension, but by inhabiting it. So whether you are a writer, a seeker, a scholar, or simply someone holding an old smelly box of inherited beliefs, this space is for you. Welcome to the Deep Dive, Theopoetics Edition. Let's begin.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
I want you to start by picturing two very different scenes.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
So in the first scene, we're in a library in a Swiss chateau. It's the early 20th century. There's this man in a stiff suit. He's wearing wire-rimmed glasses, smoking a pipe.
The quintessential image of the European intellectual.
Exactly. He looks incredibly serious, and he's writing down these meticulous scientific notes about dream symbolism.
Right.
But now I want you to cut to scene 2. We're in the frozen forests of Siberia. There's a figure wrapped in furs, face painted, and they're beating a rhythmic pulse on a hide drum.
Wow, okay.
They're dancing themselves into a trance state to chase after a lost soul in the spirit world.
The ancient shaman.
Right. And on the surface, these two people, the psychiatrist and the shaman, they couldn't be further apart.
No, not at all.
One is the absolute pinnacle of modern science, and the other is the oldest spiritual figure in human history. But today, we're going to look at a really fascinating argument that says, actually, they're doing the exact same job.
It is such a provocative idea. We are doing a deep dive today into the text Jung and Shamanism in Dialogue by C. Michael Smith. And, this isn't just a surface-level comparison where we say, oh, look, they both deal with dreams.
Right, it's deeper than that.
Much deeper. Smith is arguing that ancient spiritual technologies, which is really what shamanism is, mirror modern depth psychology in ways that are, frankly, startling.
We're going to find out if Carl Jung, the great scientist of the mind, was actually a shaman in disguise. We're going to unpack this term that comes up a lot in the source text, which is the technician of the sacred.
Which is just a beautiful title, isn't it?
It really is. But before we get to Jung, we have to get our definitions straight. Because the word shaman gets thrown around a lot.
Oh, constantly.
When I hear it, I just think pop culture. I think witch doctor, or maybe someone selling crystals at a festival in Sedona. What are we actually talking about here?
That is a great place to start because there are so many misconceptions. The source text relies heavily on the definition by Mircea Eliade, who is this giant in the history of religions. Okay.
He defines shamanism specifically as and this is a quote, technician of ecstasy.
Technician of ecstasy. That sounds...
intense.
Yeah, intense.
It is, but ecstasy here doesn't mean just being happy or having a good time. It comes from the Greek ekstasis, meaning to literally stand outside oneself. The shaman leaves their body. But here's the crucial distinction that Eliade makes.
What is it?
A medium might get possessed by a spirit. They are a passive vessel.
Like a passenger.
Exactly. A medium is a passenger. The shaman, however, is a master of spirits. They aren't being ridden by the spirits. They are driving the bus.
So they are completely in control.
Precisely. They enter a trance at will. They control the experience. And they do this because they operate in a very specific cosmology.
Right, the three-tiered universe.
Yeah, in the shamanic worldview, the universe has 3 tiers. There's the middle world, which is where we are right now, physical reality. There's the lower world, often associated with ancestors, the dead, or the deep past. And then the upper world, the realm of spirits or celestial beings. And the shaman is essentially the one person who has the VIP pass to travel between all three.
Yes, and they travel via something called the axis mundi,
The axis mundi.
the world center. It's a concept found in almost every ancient culture. It's often visualized as a world tree or a cosmic pillar that connects the three worlds.
Okay.
The shaman climbs this tree to go up to the gods or climbs down its roots to visit the dead. It's the ladder to the other side.
Okay, so they have the map and they have the ladder, but why are they actually making the trip? Like, what's the job description? Why go through all that trouble?
Usually it's about illness.
Illness.
Yeah, in the shamanic view, if you are sick, it's not just bacteria or a virus, it's spiritual. And Smith, our author, breaks this down into two main categories found in the source material. First, you have intrusion.
Intrusion, like a break-in.
Exactly like a break-in. Something is in your body that shouldn't be. A magical dart, a hostile spirit, or maybe a pathogenic object sent by a sorcerer.
And the cure for that?
Extraction. The shaman has to find it, often seeing it as a literal physical object while in the trance state, and suck it out or pull it out. It's spiritual surgery.
Wow. Okay, so that's intrusion. What's the second one?
The second and perhaps more profound one for our discussion on Jung today is soul loss.
This is the one that really grabbed me in the text.
It's powerful. It is the idea that a vital part of your essence, your soul, has fled, maybe because of a trauma, a sudden fright, or a shock. It has run away to the land of the dead to hide.
And the person left behind is...
Empty, lethargic, depressed.
The lights are on, but nobody's home.
Exactly. And the shaman's job is to go find it and bring it back. It's a retrieval mission.
You know, the source text had this incredible example from the Cherokee tradition that really painted a picture of how this worldview works. It wasn't just, oh, you got sick. It was about why you got sick.
You're thinking of the myth of the animals and disease.
Yes. So the story goes that humans started getting too aggressive. We were crowding the animals, slaughtering them without any respect. So the animals held a council to figure out what to do.
Right.
The bears met first. And they decided to make war on humans. They even tried to use human weapons, bows and arrows.
But there was a logistical problem with that plan.
Right. The bears realized that if they cut their claws to shoot the bows properly, they couldn't climb trees anymore. And for a bear, not climbing trees is a total deal breaker. So they gave up on the war.
A very practical council of bears.
It is. But the deer were much more subtle. The little deer chief said, if a hunter kills a deer without asking for pardon, without sharing respect, I will track him to his cabin and strike him with rheumatism.
And that is the key right there. Illness isn't random. It is retribution. It is a broken taboo. If you violate the natural order, the spiritual powers strike back.
Which brings us to this idea of power, because the text gets into this concept that the spiritual world isn't just holy in a churchy, quiet way. It's high voltage.
This is a critical point Smith makes. Drawing on scholars like Rudolf Otto and van der Loo, we tend to think of the sacred as just good or pure. But in the ancient mind and the shamanic mind, the sacred is power. It is mana.
Like electricity.
Exactly like electricity. Electricity gives light and warmth. It powers our entire civilization. But if you touch a live wire without insulation, it will kill you. The sacred is the exact same way.
Wow.
Otto calls it the mysterium tremendum. It is terrifying, awe-inspiring, and highly dangerous.
And this is where the technician part comes in. The shaman is basically the electrical engineer.
That is a perfect analogy. The shaman knows how to handle the high voltage without burning out. And that is what taboos are. They aren't just arbitrary rules like don't eat this or don't touch that. They are insulation. They protect the community from the raw power of the sacred.
So if I'm just a regular person and I stumble into a sacred space, I get fried. But the shaman creates a ritual, a safe container, to manage that energy so it heals instead of destroys.
Precisely. And this idea of the container is going to be very important when we look at Jung, because Jung's life, his life was a series of encounters with this high voltage, often without a manual.
Let's pivot to Jung then, because the core argument here is that Jung didn't just study this stuff in a library, he lived it. The text mentions this concept of the wounded healer.
Yes. In shamanism, you don't just apply for the job. You are often called by the spirits, and the call usually looks like a crisis. A severe illness, a psychotic break, a near-death experience. It's called the shamanic sickness. You have to cure yourself before you can cure others.
And looking at Jung's childhood, the signs were there early. He wasn't your typical kid just playing tag in the yard.
Not at all. He was a very lonely, very sensitive child. He had what we would call nature mysticism experiences.
I love the story about the stone in the text. He's sitting on this stone in his garden, playing this mental game with himself. Am I the boy sitting on the stone? Or am I the stone thinking I'm a boy?
That is a classic experience of what anthropologists call participation mystique, blurring the line between subject and object. He didn't feel separate from the world around him.
And then there's the dream, the man-eater dream. He's like 3 or 4 years old when he has this.
It is a terrifying dream for a toddler. He dreams he's in a meadow, he finds a stone-lined hole, and he goes underground.
A descent into the lower world right there.
Exactly. And in the dark, on a golden throne, he sees a massive object, the ritual phallus, essentially, standing upright. And he hears his mother's voice cry out, "That is the man-eater."
That is complete nightmare fuel.
It is, but notice the elements. Descent into the underworld. Encountering a numinous, terrifying power. It's a raw encounter with that high voltage we talked about. It scared him to death, but it also marked him.
Jung also talked about having 2 personalities. He literally called them number 1 and number 2. This wasn't a metaphor for him. He felt entirely split.
Yes. Number 1 was the schoolboy, the one who did his homework, tried to fit in, the scientist, the modern man. This is what we would call the ego.
And number 2?
Number 2 was the ancient man. Skeptical, remote, connected to nature, to the night, to God. Smith argues that number 2 was essentially the shamanic personality living inside the Swiss schoolboy.
So he spends the first half of his life building up number 1. He becomes a famous psychiatrist. He works at the Berkholzli Asylum. He wears the nice suit. And he meets Sigmund Freud. And Freud becomes this massive figure for him.
The ultimate father figure. They had a 13-hour conversation the first time they met. Can you imagine? 13 hours of intense intellectual bonding. Freud saw Jung as his crown prince, the clear heir to psychoanalysis.
And there's always a chip, but Jung couldn't stick to the script.
Yeah.
Freud wanted everything to be about repressed sexuality.
Yeah.
Jung was looking at that high voltage of the unconscious and saying, I think there's something more spiritual going on here.
And that fundamental disagreement led to the rupture in 1912. And we have to understand, this wasn't just a professional disagreement over coffee. For Jung, losing Freud was like losing his footing in the entire world. He lost his professional standing, his closest friends, and his father figure all at once.
And this triggers the crisis. The text calls it a descent into the underworld. Jung basically falls apart.
He does. He describes feeling like his soul had flown away. He was having these apocalyptic visions of Europe drowning in blood. He was hearing voices. In a clinical sense, he was teetering right on the edge of psychosis.
So effectively, he is experiencing soul loss and intrusion at the exact same time. The spirits are breaking in, and his soul has checked out.
Exactly. Now, a modern psychiatrist at the time would have medicated him or institutionalized him, but, and this is the technician of the sacred moment, he doesn't run from it.
He goes in.
He does exactly what a shaman would do. He turns toward the spirits. He develops a technique he called active imagination. He essentially induces a trance state. He lets himself drop into the depths of his own mind.
And he meets people down there. Real characters.
He does. He meets guys.
There's Elijah, the biblical prophet. There's Salome. And then there's the big one, Philemon.
Philemon is crucial. Jung describes him as an old man with the horns of a bull and the wings of a kingfisher.
Which is quite the look.
It is a theriomorphic figure, part animal, part human. Classic spirit guide stuff. But the insight Philemon brought was revolutionary. Jung realized, I am not generating these thoughts. Philemon is real. He is autonomous.
Right.
Philemon told Jung that thoughts are like animals in the forest. You don't make them. They are just there.
This is psychic objectivity. The idea that the inner world is just as real and independent as the outer world.
Exactly. And Philemon became his guru, his spirit guide. Jung would walk in his garden and have full conversations with this figure. This is the shamanic apprenticeship happening right there in Zurich. He is learning the geography of the spirit world.
And it gets even wilder. The text describes this moment where the high voltage basically spilled out into his physical house. The haunting.
The Septum Sermons incident, this is one of the strangest episodes in Jung's entire biography.
Yeah. Jung says the atmosphere in his house became thick. His daughters saw white figures walking through the halls. The doorbell was ringing frantically, but nobody was at the door.
It's a classic poltergeist phenomenon. The energy of the unconscious was so built up, it was affecting the physical environment.
And the spirits were crying out, "We have come back from Jerusalem where we found not what we sought."
And Jung, again, acting as the technician, realized he had to ground this energy. He sat down and wrote, practically channeled the 7 sermons to the dead in 3 days. Once he wrote it down, the house went quiet.
He created a ritual container for the spirits.
Yes. He insulated the wire. He took that raw, chaotic energy and gave it form.
So he survives the crisis. He retrieves his soul. He has his guides. And now we get to the synthesis part of the deep dive. How does he put this all back together?
He starts drawing. Every morning, he draws a circle, a mandala.
Which he didn't even know was a mandala at the time, right?
No, he just felt the urge to draw a circle to map his psychic state. But the circle is the universal symbol of the center. The shamanic axis mundi we talked about earlier, he was intuitively trying to find his center.
And this leads to the Liverpool dream. I love the imagery here because it's so stark.
It is. Jung dreams he is in Liverpool, which he notes sounds like Liverpool, the pool of life. But the city isn't vibrant. It's dark, it's dirty, it's covered in soot, it's raining.
It sounds miserable. It sounds like the modern industrial world.
But in the center of this grim square, there is a round pool. And in the middle of the pool, on a small island, is a magnolia tree.
Blazing with reddish blossoms.
Yes. In the middle of the dirt and darkness of the modern world, the sacred life stands in the center. Jung realized that the goal of life isn't the ego. It isn't the number one personality. The goal is the self, the center.
And that's the pearl of great price.
That is the synthesis. Just as the shaman climbs the world tree to restore balance to the community, Jung realized the goal of psychology is individuation. It is aligning your little ego with that great central self.
So he wasn't just fixing symptoms, he was trying to reconnect people to the world tree, essentially.
Precisely. Smith argues that both shamanism and Jungian psychology are technologies of the soul. They both aim to connect the personal with the transpersonal.
So if we zoom out and look at the whole picture, Jung followed the script perfectly. The wounding, the descent, the spirit guides, the recovery, and finally bringing back the boon, the gift to his tribe.
And the gift was his psychology, a map for modern people to find their souls again.
It really changes how you look at therapy, doesn't it? It suggests that modern psychology, at least the depth kind, isn't just clinical, it's a sacred recovery mission.
It is. It bridges the gap. We live in a world that Smith describes as suffering from collective soul loss. We are disconnected, lethargic, lacking meaning.
You've lost the connection to the voltage.
Or we are touching it without insulation and getting burned. We see this everywhere in modern society. Addiction, obsession, fanaticism. These are distorted attempts to touch the sacred.
That's a really powerful thought, because without the shaman, without the technician, we just don't know how to handle the power.
Exactly. We have forgotten the rituals. We have forgotten the map.
So here's the question to leave you with today. If the ancient shaman used a drum to get to the center, and Jung used his red book and his active imagination, what are our tools?
That is the question.
In a world of constant distraction, how do we access that center? Or are we just waiting for the doorbell to ring when no one is there?
Let's hope we find the answer before the haunting starts.
Thanks for diving deep with us.
A pleasure.